If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then this, the UK Property Market Stat Show, is for you. My name is Christopher Watkin, and each week I'm joined by a special guest. This week it's Kristian Stott. We'll come to Kristian in a second. Why should you watch this show? Well, the British are obsessed about the property market. Whenever the Land Registry throws some data out, it's front page news on all of the Tory leaning websites and newspapers. The Halifax or Nationwide took out some data. It's front page news. But they're looking at data. The Land Registry is looking at sales that took place 8, 9, 10 months ago. The Nationwide and Halifax are looking at sales that took place 2 or 3 months ago. We're looking at house prices and things like that from last week. And therefore, if you want an unfair advantage on, or you're just generally interested in the property market, then this show is for you. The show itself lasts approximately 1 hour. The first half of the show looks at the UK property market, where Kristian and myself will be ploughing through the different numbers like listings, fall throughs, sales, exchanges, prices achieved, that sort of thing. And then the second half is where we look at a town or a city and really deep dive into that estate agent and letting agents population just to see who's the best. This is our third year of doing it, and this week we are returning back to Norwich. We did Norwich about 18 months ago, and we are returning back to Norwich to have a look at how the agents are performing. So if you're a Norwich agent, you'll want to watch that. If you're not a Norwich agent, you might dismiss it. However, if you're an estate agent who's suffering from overvaluing or cheap fee agents, competitors, and you're looking for a way to beat those agents, then you might want to watch that show, because we're going to be using a bit of kit that enables us to analyze those estate agents independently and work out who's overvaluing. And if they're doing cheap fees, I don't obviously know what fees they're charging. You might be better at certain things in your estate agency town than those, and you could prove, look, yes, I might charge more, but I get you an extra £10,000 more. This software actually shows you that. So we'll be looking at that. We are looking at week 15 of week 15. Can you believe it? Week 15 of the year, which is, and I'll just pull up the calendar, Monday, the 14th of April, all the way through and to include Sunday, the 20th inclusive. And we'll be comparing week 15 against other week 15s going back to 2017. This week, I'm joined by Kristian Stott. Kristian is a regular on the show. He's run some big estate agents in the Midlands, and his specialization now is prop tech, but really good stuff, AI. Kristian, awesome to have you back on the show, mate.
Good morning, Chris. How are you doing?
Always a pleasure, never a chore to see you. And ladies and gentlemen, you can see why Kristian's been a stalwart of this show for this is his third year. He always offers great insight. So shall we plow on, mate, and have a look at those stats then?
Let's go.
Here we go. Right, okay, now then, so you should be able to see the graph there. Can you just confirm that before we move forward, please?
I can see it.
Beautiful. So, ladies and gentlemen, the way this works is this, okay, is that I will spend a minute just going through the raw stats, and then Kristian will give his insight accordingly. So, year to date, in terms of, let me just pull that up 2 seconds. Year to date, we are 16% higher than the 9-year average for listings year to date, and we are on 555,361, which is, as I said, 16% higher than the long-term average, and it is 8% higher than the average of 17, 18, and 19. So that's not bad at all, is it, mate?
No.
Let me just finish off the rest of the stats. Do you know I'm not on form today? I am on form, but right. So 37,503 listings this week, with an average price of 454,000. And this graph here shows us the weeks in isolation. The white line is 2025. So we've had a dip, but as I said to you last week, this is the first week of Easter, And as you can see here from previous years, we always have a dip. So what we're gonna experience, ladies and gentlemen, is three dips on listings: Easter and the two May bank holidays. Okay, so scores on the doors. What's your thoughts on listings, mate?
Easter's late, and we haven't seen sales agreed. So yeah, love it, and it's good to see. Really great number, but it's nice to see that in comparison with sales agreed.
I mean, you can see that the dip there. I mean, just to give you an idea, let me just pull up the stats here. So we've had a dip of about 4,000. Normally, we have a dip in the order of around 6,000.
Nice.
Yeah. So therefore, you can see here that's the Easter dip. The blue line is 2018. You've got all those dips are the Easter dips. Then you've got the next two little dips, which are the bank holidays. So I would have last week the number of listings was 41,134, and I would have expected 35,000 listings this week. If I'd have gone on every other years, it was 37. So there's an extra 2,000 listings that last week that we were not expecting. And like most things, these things cannot be looked in isolation. So we will be looking at the number of properties that are on the market at the moment to see if that makes any difference. But anything else on listings, or do you want me to go on the straight to?
No, I say the same thing every time. It's a broken record. They're great if they sell.
Indeed. Right, price restrictions. So we have reduced 21,206. Let's just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, of the current stock levels. So we'll just pull that up now. Hold on. Here we go. So we do the stock levels at the end of every month. Okay. So that's 705,728 is the number of properties that were on the market at midnight on the 31st of March going into the 1st of April. And the yellow lines are the same end of midnight, 31st of March into the next month. So we're running at a 705. So therefore, and again, I think when it comes to price reductions, it's all very good looking at these numbers. It's what percentage of properties are we reducing? And at the moment, we are reducing 13.4% of our stock per month. We're not doing weekly, we do monthlies on these stats.
Did you do price to market year on year yet, just to see whether that's coming down?
Price on market, here we go. So ladies and gentlemen, the red line there is the average asking price of the properties coming onto the market. The blue line shows you the average asking price of the properties that go sold subject to contract. Now, we don't know what they sold for, but as I say every week, pardon me, like a broken record, the Hamptons have done a fantastic piece of research and continue to do it, where they measure the difference between asking price and sale agreed. And apart from the 18 months, 2 years of COVID, that is always between 1% and 2% below the asking price of the final asking price before it went sale agreed. It's the gap we need to worry about. And again, this is the beauty of this show, is that we hop around. Now these are standalone figures, but look, in week 15, the average price of a property coming onto the market, 454. That's what was said earlier in the graph. Yet the average price of a property going sale agreed, 359. There's always going to be a gap. And the long-term average in the last 7 or 8 years is 16, 17%. Okay. This week, 26. Now, again, that 2024 figure was an anomaly. Okay. Let's just remind us, but yeah. Yeah, it's
Do you know what? They're not big numbers, Chris. Not big gaps yet. But so far, the picture you have painted is that we might have a bit too much stock, and asking prices or eventual sell prices might suffer, and agents might have to work hard to get it off their books. But let's have a look at numbers of sales agreed.
Yep, and we've got the exchange rates as well, ladies and gentlemen, just to give us a flavour of where that is as well. So let's move on. Oh, the average price of a property coming down 415,000. Okay, here we go. Sold up the contract this week, 24,509, which last week it was 27,000. Last week it was 27,300. The week before, 27,600. The week before that, 28. So there has been a slight drop. But again, if you look at the drops compared to other years, and I'll just pull those up now, the normal drop is in the order of around 5,000. And this time the drop was about 3,700. So yes, we've had a drop, but the drop is not end of the world, and in fact is better. That is the Easter drop, ladies and gentlemen, and you can see the extent of the normal Easter drops just here. Okay, the year to date in terms of gross sales is 13% ahead of 2024 and
Nice.
20% ahead of the more normal years of 17, 18 and 19. Again, it's going quite nicely, isn't it? Okay, it's quite, again, broken record. It's Groundhog Day. You know, doesn't matter what's happening out there. So far, property market seems to be not immune to it, but just getting on with its own life. And I think that's a message for everyone watching this, is that we can all doom and gloom with Trump and China and Ukraine, but people still need to move homes.
We don't export these, do we?
It's a shame. There'd be a tariff on it anyway. It wouldn't matter. The residential sell-through rate is how much of your sales stock that you have for sale are you shifting per month? So that's 16.32%, which is 1 in 6. So if you are selling more than 1 in 6 of your properties on the market, you're doing better than the average UK estate agent. If you're doing less, then you're doing less than that. I will just state for the record is that that number will be naturally lower in London. Okay, in London it is in late single-digit numbers. Okay?
That's tracking nicely, though, isn't it?
Yeah, notice that the shape, again, every year does the same. December up, and then we have a little wobble down. We have a little wobble in the autumn, in the spring and summer, and then she slowly drifts down. Big drop, a slight lift up in autumn, and then back down for Christmas. Very, very cyclical. Even when notice that, in the supposed good times of 20 and 21, everything, the shape is almost identical. It just everything got shifted up like a tide. And again, of something I will just state for the record is it's the market doing this. It's not estate agents. We've already done the average price. Okay, that's fine. Fall throughs. So this week we fell through on terms of our sales 5,115, which is lower than the long term, the medium term average. Just to give you a flavour of where it is, I'll just pull it up now. Last week, 6.2, week before 6.5, 6.3, 6.2, 6.3, 6.5. So it is a drop, but again, I would expect a drop on Easter week. Okay, so don't get your flags and buntings out yet. The sale fall through rate, 22.5%. So for those of you who have not watched the show before, gross sales in a week, we just take the number, we take the fall throughs, and then we express that as a percentage. So if there were 100 sales that week and 22 fell through, 22 as a percentage of 100 is 22, so that would be 22%. Okay, this I think is the more important graphic, the percentage of sales pipeline fall through. So this is your total sales. Let's just have a quick look at our sales pipeline, mate. Pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, this is even after, just to give you an idea of the number of exchanges, okay? There were 100,000 exchanges last month.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When was that stamp thing?
That stamp duty thing was the end of March.
Right.
So just be aware, ladies and gentlemen, that there was plenty of sales that poured in last month. Plenty of sales. That's what gets me about when people talk about, is the house prices have gone up by 2% or whatever, but they're basing on the land registry based on sales that took place 10 months ago. Ladies and gentlemen, be looking at the market last week, okay?
That is a bit of a gold rush, though, isn't it? So that's going to change in the next couple of months.
Okay, so again, you can see here, so this particular graph here, ladies and gentlemen, is that each week, every month, we look at what percent, a property only leaves an estate agent's books for two reasons. One is she exchanges, or one she withdraws. And the last 2 years, the average has been going between 53 and 54%. Because of the gold rush with stamp duty, that was 60.9. Interestingly, if you look at, there was hardly any fall throughs. I think we worked out the week after the stamp duty, there was an additional 300 or 400 properties that were, because we can track these, we know what the numbers will be in advance.
Yeah.
So 200 or 300, which on the whole scheme of things is not a lot.
I guess different person paying for it. In a stamp duty rush, the buyer's going to pick up the bill if they can't exchange, whereas normally it's the estate agent.
So 60.9% is slightly higher than normal, and you can see here there's always peaks at December because there's more people exchange as opposed to withdraw. So that's December, there's December, there's December, there's December. But that's a nice peak. It's not as high as the stamp duty. Can you remember we had the stamp duty? The numbers would have just blown silly. But again, we just see these graphs here. Now, just what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is if you want to use these graphs, I'm happy for you to download them. If you go to YouTube, go to the description at the bottom, there's a little tab that says graphs in the write-up description, and you can download them. All I ask is that you can use them internally, you can use them at valuations on an iPad, but please do not use them on social media. Because my daytime job is I ghostwrite articles on local property markets to help local estate agents attract homeowners to them. And some of my clients use these, and we would all look a bit silly if you were using stuff that another agent had almost, or in essence, almost paid for. Well, it had actually. But you can use them at valuations. I've got no issue at all with you on that one. Before I go to net sales, any thoughts?
Not particularly. I think there's a blip in the data. Be interesting to see what it looks like in a month or two's time as we move into summer.
Very much so. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Kristian doesn't say much, but when he does, you listen because he's very insightful.
You're the first to have said that I don't say much, but maybe.
You're like, right, here we go. Net sales. So this is gross sales, less fall throughs. We're on 301,250, which is 10% ahead of 2020 of 24 and 14% ahead of 17, 18, and 19. There is the standalone graph. The white line showing 2025, the red line showing 24. And you can see here again with the red line is that, all of them actually, is that there are 3 dips and we're going into our first dip. We'll come out the other side and then we'll have 2 more in May. Okay. So just be prepared.
But that's this week, isn't it? No, last week.
Yes.
That was the week with Easter in it.
Yes, but remember we had a bank holiday Monday. However,
that's right.
However, what is particularly interesting with regard to, especially sales agreed, I know it's net, but most sales are agreed at the back end of the week. So take out a Good Friday, it messes things up. Okay, but this week it comes back because bank holiday Monday. But what is weird though is the ones in May always have more of an effect. So this week it will bounce back to normal, and then we'll get the May drops. But you can see here there's been a drop. I mean, just to give you an idea, let me just pull up the stats, ladies and gentlemen. 19,000 last week. It was 21 the week before, 21.7 the week before. I mean, to give you an idea, back in 2021, the drop was 5,000, and the norm, so.
So data-wise, Chris, what is a sale agreed? A change in portal listing status?
Yes.
How does the data? Yeah. Okay. So those that have a sale agreed, but the portal listing status is not changed, don't exist in the data.
No, this is just new stuff coming in. Sorry. Yes, this is stuff coming in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. This is just standalone weeks. Net sales is how many gross sales came in. Take off the fall throughs, and that's your number. The number being, no, not that number. 18,994. Okay.
Yeah.
But remember what you have remembering here, ladies and gentlemen, is this. So Easter happened at different times. So it is going to be in a state of flux now. And and then she'll let out in June. Then she'll just follow down here. The art with this graph is to see how far up or down does it
Yep.
follow other years. You can see here that the pink line was 2023, and it was all hunky dory, and it was just slightly above or just around the orange line, which was 17, 18, and 19. And then so I don't know if you can remember, but something happened in 2023 and bloody interest rates. So interest rates started to grow and it started to bite. So the pink line started dropping. Okay. And then we had that awful budget. No, that was the Easter bank. That was the Easter bank holiday. Not Easter, I was mixed up.
It's August.
That was the August bank holiday. And then, as I said, so that was 23, which was interest rates. The budget, the blue line, because we had the budget in the autumn. So we were drifting down. So we're looking at the turquoise line, ladies and gentlemen. So the turquoise line was doing very nicely, hunky dory, just slightly below the green line, which was 21. And then the green line just went back up and we were selling 20,000. All of a sudden, look, this here is the budget. You can see the massive drop there. So every graph, every piece of data tells a story. So the turquoise line is the budget, and the pink line was when interest rates started to bite in 23. Okay, couple of extra graphs there. Gross sales as a percentage of listings and price changes as a percentage of listings.
Let's have a look at that one. 56. So nothing to see there, really, is there?
No, it's nice and steady, but again, it's just nice to know, bad news sells newspapers. So if
it is interesting though that for the past 3 years, that number is high. Agents are having to work the stock, aren't they?
No wonder if we're only shifting 53% of the 54% of the houses we're selling.
Yeah. Yeah, it does suggest though that they're coming on a little bit rich.
Well, the problem of overvaluing,
Oh, we're not doing it again. No, we're not doing that one.
You're not biting. You're not biting.
I bite every time. I say the same bloody thing every time. There's nothing I can say can matter. It is.
I got called out on social media saying, why am I always criticizing estate agents? I'm not. I'm just giving you some tough love, and someone has to say it, and it seems to have fallen in my lap to say it. And you could say, well, if you haven't got it, how can you sell it? Well,
we're here. We've arrived. We have fallen into the conversation. And I think that we don't talk about vendor expectation enough. And that's the challenge with any form of valuation process is the statistically correct price is generally irrelevant. No one cares.
I mean, I teach my clients, one of the things I teach them is how to get overvaluing. And how do you get overvaluing? Well, remember, a human being makes a decision. You have to have a yes from two sides of the brain, the emotional and the logic. But this is the bit that really most people don't know. You need the yes. 19 out of 20 times a human makes an actual decision to do something. The emotional side of the brain has to say yes first. So if you're walking in, smashing proverbially their head against the thing, look at these bloody comparables, you're not going to win. Only 1 in 20 times. The way you need to do it is you need to get them emotionally bought in first, then hit them with the logic. So you tell stories that are similar to theirs, of how other agents, and other vendors basically overvalued, which messed up their life. And I don't want you to have that problem. So here is the stats that back that up. Okay. And I'll tell you another beef of mine, and I've been really going for it on social media, is the amount of times estate agents lose the listings twice. So you lose it to cheap fees, you lose it to overvaluing. Okay, all right. Let's just assume you've lost it. But but what then happens is the estate agent says, if you don't, I know you've signed up for, well, that's if you even pick the bloody phone up. But even if they do, if you're on the market for 20 weeks, if you need a call, if you give us a shout, all right? Or they ring them up at week 18. How are you getting on? Okay. Because I find it fascinating that an estate agent, homeowner will get out 3 estate agents, A, B, and C. Let's say just say C overvalues. They will never go back to A and B they'll go to estate agent D on the, and they do that because A and B hasn't made it easy for the homeowners to come back to them because their ego has got in the way because they've lost it. So, I mean, you've just got to nurture them. You've got to actually ring up your lost vows more than your own vendors. True?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of the things we have seen is the
Hold on,
statistics change over the years.
Let me just get off my soapbox.
One of the numbers we've seen change over the years is second listing, and I think there is merit in the conversation that says if you're the agent that lists it first, that isn't a bad thing, and if you did that with a low fee, and if you did that with a high price, as long as you sell it in the end, it isn't a bad thing. And therefore, how do you measure it? Do you measure it statistically, or do you say, does your P&L say you can choose a new car? If it doesn't, think backwards as to how you list him. But if the P&L says choose a new car, who cares?
Well, I mean, there are estate agents out there. I mean, the two big, well-known brands, they only sell 24 to 25% of the properties they list.
Yeah.
Scary. But their fees are so high, their business model allows it. Good for them.
Okay.
Good for them. But what about the 75% of homeowners? But again, nationally, 53, 54. Right, let's carry on.
I think we'll also see, Chris, actually, that when we go to the graph which shows the AVM metrics listing to sale, actually that it often appears the best estate agent is the one that plays the straightest bat in terms of their we can't see it, but they're likely. Well, I guess we could go into Companies House, start looking backwards at accounts, but it appears to me that the estate agents that play the straightest bat generally have a nice, consistent business.
Well, we're going to look at that, ladies and gentlemen, on Norwich. And if you're interested, then you might want to watch that part of the show because the bit of software is available to agents. Right, couple of little extra graphs. This just shows you the number of properties for sale in the different regions back 2017. And again, if you download the graphs, you'll be able to see that in greater detail. And then this just shows you the number of properties that are for sale, that are for sale today compared to last year. So generally, we've got a 7 or 8% more stock on the market, which again falls in line with very much that. Okay. I think
we don't want too much of that. In my opinion, I should say it's an opinion.
No, we don't. I mean, just remind ourselves that the reason house prices came down was too much supply in 2008, too much supply, not enough demand. That figure was 1.2, 1.4 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need to keep an eye on that. Now, what is interesting is that number, that even though the number of listings has, as I said, gone through the roof, just again, let's just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, it is 8% higher than the long-term average, and 16% higher than the 8-year average. Is that withdrawal rates have been quite significant. Now, why have they been? Because you have been overvaluing them and not selling them. Anyway, there you go. Let's leave the first part of the show there. Anything you want to say now, or do you want to save it to the end? Choice is yours.
Nothing to say, thank you. It's tracking nicely.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are now about to go to Norwich, which I think used to be a TV thing where it was Nicholas Parsons, Sale of the Century, going live from Norwich. And I will not do the certain modern comedian who comes from Norwich as well. So I won't say, ha ha! Right, okay, sorry, I had to get that in. I do apologise, Norwich estate agents. Right, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us go to Norwich. Okay, for the benefit of anyone that's not watched this part of the show before, we are using a bit of kit called Insight. Insight is from a firm called 20EA. 20EA have a number of different platforms, one of which is Insight. The best way to describe Insight is Rightmove Plus on steroids with lasers and glitter balls. It is a truly amazing bit of kit. I have not been paid 1 penny to recommend it. I should be, though, the amount of people that bought it because of watching this show. But quite frankly, if you are wanting to track your success as an estate agent and compare yourself with competition and prove that you are a better estate agent compared to your competitors, then you should, even if you're not Norwich based or not, seriously consider this bit of kit. Please do not mention my name because I'm not on commission. I believe there is a free version of this, which only looks at data going back 3 months. There's also a paid for version based on a town or a city, and then you can have regional, and then there's national as well. The data itself, as I said, is like Rightmove Plus, but it goes back 5 years plus the year we're in. So that's the thing I love about this compared to Rightmove Plus, because it actually tracks it, and it also tracks a shed load more of stuff compared to what Rightmove does as well. And you'll be pleased to know that there is the only pie chart is that one there. Oh, sorry, I had to get that one in. Right, so without further ado, I'm sure the Norwich agents are holding with bated breath wanting to watch. Now, I will stress to you, ladies and gentlemen, is this. If you're watching this on a mobile phone, you're wasting your time. You'll find it really small and very grainy. So please do either watch it on an iPad or even better on a bigger screen. Okay. Right, here we go. So, as always, Kristian, I'll keep talking. You cut across whenever you see something you like. We're going to be primarily looking at residential sales data. There is a bit of letting stuff at the end for the lettings departments. And the first thing that we are going to look at is residential new instructions, new listings. And we're looking at between the 1st of the January 2020 all the way through to include the 22nd of April 2025. The postcode districts that we're looking at is NR1 through to NR8. I know some of you, there are some small baby satellite towns like your Wroxhams of this world, which are on the outskirts. I've not included those. I've gone NR8, NR1 to NR8 because that is what Wikipedia says is core Norwich. Okay, I have not put any new builds on this, but again, you can change this for price bands and you can change it for property types. We'll be having a play of that in a second. Right, so in the last 5 years and 3 months ish, 30,225 properties have come on the market in Norwich with an average asking price of 290,000. You can see the graphs here shows you on a month by month basis the number of properties that are coming on the market. We are only 2/3 of the way through April, so we won't have completed. So let's just have a quick look at Marches, and you can see that 627 properties came onto the market in Norwich in the postcodes mentioned. And then if you compare that with the pre-March 2020, so again, difficult to compare apples with apples because the lockdown had just started to hit. But if we compare it with other years, let's just have a quick look. In 2022, 531 compared to 627. Now, what is particularly what that's screaming at me, I don't know about you, Kristian, is that the growth in listings has not been as great as the UK average.
Yeah.
Is it? If you look at the show, that growth is not as much. So therefore, fewer people are putting their houses on the market compared to COVID levels. So
I just can't think how big Norwich is. It seems like a reasonably small market, doesn't it? But I can't really think how big Norwich is.
Well,
it's also interesting to look on the right there to see that the independents appear to be performing very well in that market. There's a couple of unindependents there, but the independents seem pretty strong. And from a property count, no obvious onliner. Interesting.
Norwich City Council, which is basically the postcodes we've mentioned, has a population of around 140 to 145,000.
Oh, so it's like Worcester then. Okay, that's why it looks small. Fine, it's a small place.
Which means the number of households, because normally the number of households the ratio is always fixed. I would suggest that the number of households will probably be in the order of around late 60s, early 70s. Okay.
Is there a University of Norwich, is there?
UEA, University of East Anglia. And there's also...
Oh, right. So that's obviously like Chelmsford and all that sort of stuff, isn't it? Okay, got it.
It's a Norwich-based university. It might have outreaches, but it's based in Norwich. Yeah. Right,
Gotcha.
let's have an analysis and see. And
Low value.
it depends where you come from, mate. I mean, you come from posh part of the world, mate. You know, not like some of us. Right, let's have a look. So William H. Brown, part of the Connell Sequence Group. And we can quite clearly see, as again, that, and I'm going to hazard a guess, that those spikes are the Boxing Day spikes. Let's have a look. Yep. Okay. Nothing wrong with those. I know a lot of people call Connell Sequence for their. Now that is interesting. Look, their spikes in 21-22 were quite significant.
Mm.
Now, have you noticed that their market share is slightly drifting downwards from around 13%? If we put a mental line through here to
Yeah,
around
yeah.
12. So William H. Brown's market share is drifting slightly. We are not criticizing you, William H. Brown. Just telling you what the facts are, okay? So, and again, price 263. So they're lower to middle market.
Just come out of William H. Brown. Just while we're on the market share, who's gaining then?
But we're going to look at the top 10, okay?
Yeah,
Okay. Right. Gilson Bailey.
there
Why
we
that?
go. There's one.
So it looks like Gilson's really get hit
December.
by the December. So let's see if
Mm.
there's any other agents who are doing the Boxing Day launches. Okay. I mean, generally, I'll give them that. Gilson Bailey, look, it looks like they had a poor 2020 and then have been growing. So the net figures are growing, but that is very spiky, Gilson Bailey.
Mm.
Very spiky. And I'll just double check. So if you know, ladies and gentlemen, my daytime job is a data economist, and as I said, I create content and analyze estate agents' performance to attract landlords and vendors. If I was sitting down with Gilson Bailey, I would be finding out what are you or are you not doing in December, because that is scary as hell.
Well, yeah. I mean, I suppose the origin of the data is probably another factor, isn't it? Because I suppose if this is just a measure of idiosyncratic portal activity, i.e.,
Oh,
they do things slightly differently, it is interesting that
no, 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 look, mate, look, no, no, no. You're using big words that even me don't understand. All right, look, but okay. I mean, look, those are huge spikes from William H.
yeah,
Brown. They're not as spiky, but they're still spiky. Well, let's just see if other agents
yeah.
get clobbered by the Connell sequence. Right, okay. 254 average for Gilson Bailey. Let's go to Miners and Brady.
There you go.
Look at that.
There you go.
That's really
Minus
impressive.
Brady, have they got a self-employed model?
I'm not aware if they do. I believe they have like
Uh,
five-ish, six branches based in the Norfolk area. I've had Jamie Miners on my sofa a couple of years ago. Very impressive gentleman. Hungry and humble. I'm liking that. That is nice, steady market share growth.
yeah, I
Well,
agree.
looks like 2020, the level of growth in back end of 24 seems to have leveled slightly. You know, look, if you could pull a mental line through that, and it's probably leveled. So again, the level of growth. I mean, um, Miners and Brady do very, very well in estate agents awards as well. So, you know, with their stats. So that
Mm.
doesn't surprise me. We will just have a quick look. I mean, this is the last 5 years. We will just have a quick look in the last 12, 18 months to see. Right, let's go and look at Pimco. So it looks like 2020 was a good year for them. You had a bad 20 and then it drifted off. Looks like there's been slight growth here, but nice and steady. Let's go look at Starkings and Watson. Great growth in 2020 that seems to have leveled out between 4 and 5% in 23-24. Let's go look at Abbott Fox.
Woof.
Now that's a COVID spike. Yeah, we
Mhm.
get a lot of those. We've been doing these for 3 years. Um, Looks like Abbott Fox a slight drift.
1st of April is it's a very COVID spike, isn't it?
I mean, and when it says the first, it means the whole of the month. That's just the way the data gets.
Yeah, yeah.
You often get those spikes in with COVID months where one agent puts a few houses on the market and it
Mm.
spikes. But we ignore the spike. The general drift is a general drift downwards. So let's look at Winkworths. Decent growth there. That's not bad, but seems to have leveled off in 23. Russon Hill, again, a COVID spike, nice and steady. Well, Webster seems to be growing, although not great. Although it looks like you've had a back end of 24. Have you got a new member staff there? That's nice to see. Let's go and look at Hart. So that
Quite consistent, isn't it?
Okay, iconic, consistent. Hammond and Stratford. Okay, everyone seems to be staying in their ladders. Property ladder slight drifting downwards. Let's go look at Abbott's, which are part of Cornwall sequence.
One more click.
It might not be. Need to check that one. PB.
Purple bricks.
Okay.
Right.
Astley.
You jumped pretty quick off that one.
Okay, I mean they're going to get quite spiky down this level. Okay.
Just jump back to purple bricks. So they were up at 6.5 at one point.
So they were
down to
they were like number 3 in the town, the city.
Well, I think that's an interesting story.
But again, it's nationally they're like that.
Veni Vici died.
Stop using the big words. We're estate agents, okay? We're not all as clever as you. Right. Let's just have a quick look at the posh range, okay? Let's just see who the daddios and the mummies and daddies are at the posh range. Okay, 30,000. So we'll get that up.
Not much of a market there, I don't think.
Not much over a million. Let's go to
200 in 5 years. Okay.
Again, 6. Okay, we'll go 500,000, but that's my last offer. Right, that's Europe a quarter. Actually, was it 30,000 sales?
Yeah, there's below 10%, isn't there?
Let's just have a quick look. Hold on.
Yeah, you were 30k.
30k. So therefore,
So to get to 10% of the market, you've got to include the 400 to 500, have you?
You have, which will pull a lot in. So this is not the upper quartile. This is the upper decile. Oh, we're using that basically means, ladies and gentlemen, the upper 10%. And it's quite obvious here that Webster's seem to be the agent of choice there with 9%. Although quite a nice pack underneath. Let's just have a look at our friends at Miners and Brady just to see if they're pulling any shoes up. So it appears that Miners and Brady not. Again, the numbers are so small, ladies and gentlemen, that it's going to be quite spiky. And again, the posh houses over a million are not necessarily going to be in central Norwich. They're going to be in the outskirts, and we're not covering that. So again, apologies there, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you posh agents that that are not going to be coming in the finer countries and saddles of this world. Okay, let's just to that back, and we'll have a quick look. Let's just get. I'm just going to pull the dates up to the last 12 months. And we can see here that Miners and Brady in the last year are the number one agent at 12%. But again, there we can see there in stark isolation that whilst Miners and Brady are number one, they tend to be bouncing between 10 and 15%. Gilson's, again, looks like they're pulling their socks up again.
So I think for Miners and Brady, looking at the graph of their growth, it does represent quite a nice vision, doesn't it? That they've just consistently grown through that period of time. It's nice to see.
It is. It is, and again, that's but again, quite spiky here. Generally, remember on the graph, it was long term, but if you recall, we seem to think that Miners and Brady would in 2024 have not been growing at the same extent as they were. I mean, there is a question here: is there a glass ceiling on terms of how much market share you can have? What's your thoughts?
I've always thought there is, to be honest with you. I think a lot of that is just gut, in that I think there's just a point where choice prevails, and almost to the point where people choose away rather than choose towards. but I've never managed to really prove it.
Okay.
To my chagrin, I would suggest, but yeah.
Well, I do this every week, as you know, and single branch opera. The best I've seen on a single branch in a decent town, i.e., a population of 30 or 40,000 and above. So you
Mhm.
have at least 10 or 12 competitors. We are looking at, I think JD Gallagher's up there. She's got early mid 20s. Okay.
Yeah, and she's a market leader. I think one thing that's interesting is you're looking here across, did you say 8 different postcodes?
Yeah, but
And I think
no, but hold on a second. That is the city. It's not suburban. It's
no,
suburban.
I understood. And you know what I'm saying is that I think you get in bigger spaces, you get differences. You know, if you take a small town, so 20, 30,000, maybe 40,000 people, one agent can influence a bigger sphere than they can in a bigger town. So you can get these sort of not they're not anomalies. That's not fair, but it's harder for a single agency. And then you start to get your big independents where they may have 5, 10, 15 branches all proximate to one another in the same space versus 1 to 2 branches which can't then cover such a big area.
Yeah, I probably 10 branches too much, but probably the difference between one branch and say a four branch. The best I've seen is Guildford.
Right?
Or was it Woking? I mixed the two up. And there was a very
Really?
good Seymour's
Don't
there,
tell them that.
and they had four branches, and it's a big city. It's the size of Norwich, and they had late 30s market share.
See, I find that incredible.
Really impressive. But ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking for, it takes a lot to impress me. But Seymour's really impresses me in the Surrey, Sussex area, that sort of area.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
They're a
very,
great
very
business.
impressive. Very impressive. Okay, we've looked at the posh bits. We've looked at the market share. We'll just have a quick look. Just see, have we got any self-employed estate agents in these guys? Let's have a quick look. See any EXPs. There's a Yopa. There's an EXP. Early days for you guys.
Only just begun, haven't they?
Just begun. So, bless them. Arnold Keys. So there's some.
Just have a quick look at Yopa. Not that I wish to compare Yopa to Purple Bricks in any way. Does their graph go down?
Remember, we're only looking at the top.
Uh, oh yeah, you cut the time out, didn't you? Yeah.
I mean, these are some small numbers. I mean, again, if there's some agents in here who are struggling to get market share and you want to pick my brain on how I can get you more listings, I only work for one agent per town or city. I don't have a client in Norwich, but if you're looking for some insight, I work for over 120 agents around the UK, one per town. If you want me to grow your market share for sales and lettings, then do give me a call because I appreciate it's really hard work growing businesses, but that's my daytime job. I'll just keep going through these because I know some of the agents watching this will want to have a look. And again, I fully appreciate there's agents out here who specialise in the villages, so you're going to not come off as well. But again, it's just to show you the growth. Okay, then we've got Webster's. Nice growth there. Nice one, guys.
Mm.
Okay. Pims, Starkings and Watson, Winkers, William H. Brown, Gilson Bailey. Nice growth there. I like that. So it just shows you, it looks like Gilson Bailey might have turned the corner actually, which sometimes you can't see with the big picture. Right, let's move on. Stock levels. This might be of interest. That just shows you the number of properties for sale and you can see here that in 2020 it was 1,649, and that has been growing steadily. Well, it's gone down in 22 and then it's grown back up again. So again, that just shows you the level of properties for sale. And again, you can see which agent, especially you can see which agent has where their stock is. Just give you a flavour of what your competitors are doing. Okay. Well. This is the next chart. Let's have a look and see what's happening here. So we are looking we're looking at the last 12 months. Okay. Now, And what we're specifically looking at, I know the new instructions are here and the sole subject contracts. I want you to totally ignore that, ladies and gentlemen. The true magic is in these 4 columns here. Okay? Absolute awesome magic. Okay? You see, a property will only leave an estate agent's book if she exchanges or she withdraws. Do you agree with that statement, Kristian?
100%.
So therefore, if we can work out of all the properties that have left your books, what percentage of them have exchanged, then surely this is, in my humble opinion, the one metric. Other metrics are important, but this is the big one. Did you sell the house or not? Now, in Norwich, remember the national average is 54. In Norwich, 59.25% of homes exchanging have completed in the last 12 months, whilst 40 or 0.75, which is 2,400, have left estate agents' books unsold. Okay? So, because you add those two numbers up, 70.3 and 29.7, it makes 100, right? So, and immediately the thing that's screaming at me is this, is we've got Miners and Brady at 7. This is, I think, this is, if I was judging an estate agency, 50% of the marks, even 60% of the marks would be on this stat, okay? Miners and Brady have exchanged contracts on 70.3. Winkworth's 64. Starking's on what?
Excuse me.
But we've got some really no numbers in here. Hart and Abbott Fox, late 40s, early 50s. William H. Brown, 47. That surprised me, Gilson Bailey, that you're down at 58. I would expect the lowish numbers from the corporates. They do tend to have suppressed numbers. I'm not criticizing at all.
I think I reference the new instruction column in particular. So exchanged, withdrawn are very interesting numbers, but they're most interesting when compared to new instructions because that gives it an identity of the scale at which they are doing it. And I think if you look at effort in to outcome out, the smaller the scale, you would think the more high level of operational consistency because you don't have the challenges of scale, you have the challenges of customers and sales. I think if you reference column 3, which is new instruction, you get a very different picture because businesses in this space that can do a high number of percentage exchanged with obviously a low number with withdrawn linked to a high volume of new instructions is a very special flavor of epicness. You see, compare there, like for like, 688, so they're slightly fewer on new instructions, but then compared exchanged and withdrawn, you've got two completely different businesses ranking not side by side, but ranking number 1 and 2, yet P&L wise, I'll bet you they're totally different businesses.
I mean, it's an interesting look. Here is that we're looking at Gilson Bailey, and it's quite obvious that they've had in 2024, they're ignoring the Christmas slumps. They have grown from around 8% to in the order of around 15 or 16.
Yeah, market share.
Okay, market share for residential loo listings. The question is, has that been at the expense of a high withdrawal rate? And it has.
There you go. And more importantly, what we don't know is what the average fees are comparing the two. So, for example, if Miners Brady average fee is 0.6 and Gilson Bailey's is 1.25, you've got two very different businesses.
We unfortunately don't know the levels of the fees. Okay, so an average of 40% of houses, but what is interesting is that the withdrawal rate is for Miners Brady is 29. So look again here, high exchange rates, which means naturally withdrawal rates are going to be much lower. On this core here, your Winkworth, Starkings, Pims, Websters, and Russens. So what we've got here is we've got Miners and Brady with some great stats, Gilson Bailey and William H. Brown with some lower stats, and then we've got a nice chunk between numbers 4 and 8, these which are performing really, really well. And then she drops down and then back up again into the 70s. So, Hammond and Stratford and Claxton Bird, 73, 74. That's exactly what Kristian was saying, is that they're smaller agents. So what you tend to find is smaller agents normally have a higher percentage of their sales go through to exchange. That is the problem with volume. Although it seems to be Miners Brady seems to be have beaten that. So I'd love to.
Well, I think let's talk about it, right? We've seen consistent growth over a 5-year period. We've seen
leveled off in the last 12 months,
which might be indicative of what we'll now call the Watkins phenomenon, otherwise known as the glass ceiling. But it could be they've reached that sort of peak exposure in the area. But we've seen consistent growth in market share, which is lovely. We've seen high levels of new instructions beating off most competitors. And we're seeing that they're exchanging at 70% with 29.70 withdrawing. As long as they're not charging 0.5% fees, that for me is a good business.
Well, let's do a little bit more deep diving. Okay. So the fall through rate on average is 25.91. And it looks like here that the sale fall through rate is all pretty stable. So that's no issues there. Let's look at price changes.
37 is quite a big number, Chris. Who's that?
What's that?
37.72.
Abbott Fox.
Right.
Right. Okay. On average, 50.85% of houses.
Just out of interest, what's the highest on that list for price changes? Is it 68.97?
On this one, yeah, and it's
yeah. And who does that belong to? There you go. They're working for a living.
We are going to be looking at the overvaluing stats in a second, but what that's telling me is that without looking at the overvaluing stats, is that Miners and Brady are working their stock really well. Yeah, whilst Gilson and Bailey are not working their stock so well at 51. Two is also Winkworth's not working the stock, although decent exchange ratio, which means Winkworth's might be putting them on the market that they don't need to work their stock.
Well, if you take this as a consideration, whilst there are sort of external factors which influence withdrawal rates, change in circumstances, etc., withdrawal rates generally are built on the sofa at the first meeting. Did you set expectation adequately? Because breaking expectation is the fastest route to withdrawal. And if you look here with Miners and Brady's, they're selling customer stock at 70 odd percent, and they're price changing at nearly 70 odd percent, which says to me that even if they are overvaluing, as you say, and we'll go back to that conversation that it's only overvaluing if the vendor didn't know you couldn't get that price. They're obviously setting expectation and they're managing expectation. They're limiting their withdrawal rate and they're selling property, even if they've got to change the price on most of them.
Bang on. Right, let's have a look at the overvaluing stats just to see if Miners Brady are overvaluing or, well, we'll have a look. Here we go. And then we'll come back to this screen here. Ladies and gentlemen, an awful lot going on here, so let me explain, okay? Okay, so what happens here is this. 20EA will look at your exchanges for the last 2 years, all right? The numbers of exchanges are not on this screen. What they do, just for ease, is that they look at the number of instructions you put on and just put them in order. So biggest at the top, right? So this here is almost irrelevant. Okay, here we go. So let me go nice and slow because I've got to explain this. The orange line is what 20EA have is they have an AVM, an automated valuation model. You would know that as like a Valpal figure or a computerized valuation figure for the property. Okay, what they will do is they will then compare that figure to the figure that you put the house on the market for. Okay, so on average, Miners and Brady will put the property onto the market at on average of 2.83% over what they think it's worth. This is only the properties that you end up exchanging on. So any property that you overvalue and you don't exchange does not appear in these stats. Okay, so this is just for all of the exchanges that have taken place in the last couple of years. On average, Miners Brady 2.83, William H. Brown 194, and then again, this is screaming at me. Look, you've got a nice low figures here, which is with your Winkworth, Starkings, and Pims, which is the same.
Yeah, but Chris, do remember the values. It's low value.
Okay, hold on. Let's keep going because right. Okay, so quite obviously, Miners and Brady overvalue by nearly 1% because the average is 1.76. So Miners and Brady, on average, overvalued by 1% compared to their main competitors. But
I think compared to the other weeks where we've talked about this picture you've got here, low value, high volume, knife fight.
what this is telling me about Miners and Brady, and we'll go look at everyone else, is this. Miners Brady overvaluing, working their stock, and getting it through so they've got one of the highest exchange levels. So this is ethical overvaluing. Okay, get it on. Let's try it. They're probably knocking the price down really quickly because, again, let's remember the magic stat, ladies and gentlemen. If a property takes less than 25 days to get to a sale agreed, the percentage chance that property will eventually get to exchange is 94%. A property sells within 25 days, it has a 94% chance of getting through to exchange and completion. If a property takes more than 100 days to achieve a sale, then the chances of that sale subsequently then getting through to exchange and completion comes crashing down to 56%. Shocking. So you can overvalue, but then you have to get the price down really quickly.
Those guys are bringing a gun to a knife fight. They know exactly how to make money in this market. The next you've just landed on it, Starkings and Watkins are the next closest to them in terms of exchange percentage. And if you look at the trading volume of instructions to market, given that's what we can see there, or exchanged, the trading volume of exchanged is more than double, and yet they're still keeping that level of conversion rate.
So you're impressed with Starkings. Let's just have a quick look at Starkings.
What I'm saying actually is I'm very, I don't know if impressed is the right word because we're talking about stats, but what I do think is we have a picture painted here exactly as it is. Miners and Brady have brought a secret sauce to that marketplace, which makes money.
I'm saying here they're overvaluing, but they're getting the price down quickly. They're working their stock. Good old fashioned estate agents.
They're working their vendors from the get-go.
Day one.
It wouldn't surprise me if they're even saying to their vendors, do you know what? We're a little bit rich on this one, but as long as you're happy to come to the market with this expectation that we will adjust the price to get it sold, off we go.
Right. Next, what price did you achieve from your original asking price? So even though, this is here is on average, Myers and Brady are getting on the properties they've exchanged on in the last 2 years in the postcodes we've said on average 3.6% less than the original asking price. So even though they are overvaluing, it's still looking good. Now, so what you can do is you take one from the other to get the net figure, but most people don't know exchanges. So let's just put it into cold, hard cash. If everyone put on a £300,000 house, what would everyone achieve for it? Miners and Brady would get 297, which is 2,000 more than the Norwich average. Webster's would get 4,486 more than the Norwich average. And if you're going up against one of your competitors, let's just say Webster's are going up against Pim & Co. You could take one from the other and say, I'll get you 4 plus 2, so that's 6, 7,200, 7,300. So if I was Webster's, I'd say, I'll get £7,000 more and here's the proof. That's what this state is saying. Now, nice and tight there. So the average Norwich agent would get 294. So
I don't think I've ever seen £5.38 before, but again, that's a very interesting number.
Okay, when they're talking baby numbers and auctions, we have to take it with a pinch of salt. But look, even even Miners and Brady can say, I'll get you a couple of grand, 2,000 more than the average.
Yeah.
Now, what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, is this, is that if you intend to use this in your marketing, please, please, please be careful. I cannot be held responsible for this data if you go out and just take this data from this. You have to buy your own license from 20EA, and then they'll tell you how to present this if you do wish to go down the route of bragging about these numbers. But you can see here, there's some nice tight numbers. But again, if you can say to an agent, if you can say to a vendor, I'll get you £4,000 more than the other agent, and here's your proof. This is how you beat cheap fees. Powerful stuff. Let's move on. Who sells houses the quickest? Claxton Bird seem to sell their houses quickest in an average of 41 days. Miners and Brady at 52 days. Gilson Bailey at 53. Webster's at 52. Winkworth's at 60. The average is 64 for the city. And we can just briefly go. William H. Brown again, 85. Starkings and Watlers 73. And then the pink line is how long do you take to get through from sole to contract to completion. So Claxton's here 128, Winkworth's 114, Webster's 123, Gilson Bailey 123, Miners and Brady 127. The average is 121.
In those top five, there's a 10-day gap between NI to completion by the looks of things. I don't know if you just want to whiz through them again, but I think Miners and Brady's was about 10 days longer in total sales cycle time. 179. I think it's 169 at the top there for Claxton Bird.
Okay. I mean, you can just see that if, William H. Brown are not the agent if you want to sell quickly, Claxton Bird are, but then you've got to apply, did they actually sell it and what price did you get cheap for it?
Yeah. So there's 10 days between the top five performers in the space.
On average, as I said, 64 days from new instruction to sale agreed in the last 12 months going backwards. The 12 months before that, which would be April 23 to April 24, it was 59 days. So it is taking a bit longer. And it's taking on average 121 days, and it's still taking 121 days from sale agreed to completion. Okay, let's have a quick look at the lettings. Okay, you can see here that this is obviously
there's our friends at Open Rent.
There's the November lump, which is the student population. Let's just have a quick look. Open Rent from an average of 5% to 17%. If you're an agent and you're believing that the number of landlords setting up has gone through the roof, you are sadly mistaken. All the stats, the actual stats, show that the number of landlords that own buy-to-let properties is still growing. It is not. It is very slow growth, but it isn't a massive slump. The biggest issue that letting agents have is Open Rent, because Open Rent at the moment, as you say, if you're looking at just the last 12 months, on average, around 10 to 15%. Now, some data that I asked 20EA to look at is, and this is a national problem, is how many of those properties were previously on the market with a high street agent? And 51.2. So just over half of properties that Open Rent are putting on the market were previously on the market with a high street agent. They're leaving you and they're going to because they think it's easy. You make it look easy. So again, if you are a letting agent and you want to use data and techniques to retain landlords, but also attract new landlords to you, then please do give me a shout. Because if you don't ring me, another agent in Norwich will, because I can only work for one agent per Norwich.
I think, Chris, if we've talked about that stat because it's a common stat a couple of times, and I mean this really genuinely. What you consistently say in your messaging, and this is not necessarily talking about your day job, just your social content, has never been more valuable to the agents, because the value proposition as recognized by the consumer is evidently changing. Open Rent is growing. And you sort of say, why don't landlords want to be really looked after? Why don't they want a property management team that's going to take great care of them? Why don't they want to pay?
No, all we do is our property managers ring them up when there's a problem. We don't sit down with our landlords. We don't portfolio manage. We don't ask if they match what they want. We don't look at yields. We don't look at capital growth. We just
And
don't do any
I
of that.
think any agent looking at that stat needs to start looking at your social media content a bit more.
It's very kind of you to say. William H. Brown, you can see here, big in the game. They had almost 1 in 6 houses for rent, and now they're around the 5% mark. So William H. Brown appear to have suffered quite hard. So look at leaders.
Steady.
Is that so? That doesn't look like students, because normally the students normally come through in
There may be one dominant
November.
player in the space. Let's have a look. Where are we? Norwich, aren't we? Norwich student lets.
So Abbott Fox seems to be really stronger in lettings.
So uni homes feature pretty quickly on the SEO, whether that makes them big or not.
Whiz through these. Okay.
So none of the student let players that feature highly on the SEO have featured in our conversation.
No, but again, look, it's just if you look at it, if you look here, in a student city, okay, I would expect that to be up here.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, massive. These are like single story dwellings compared to absolutely, in that magic month, everything gets dumped on the market. So what this is telling me is that there is a student market, but UEA has a lot of university accommodation.
Gosh, okay.
Which means that there's not much private sector. That's what that's telling me. I might be wrong. And again, we're looking at new instructions. We don't know what the portfolio is, but there is a direct relationship between portfolio. Oh, here we are. Prolet. They're also student. They must be student. Yes, they are. Look. So Prolet seem to be a student agent. There is a formula. There's one for London and there's one for outside London, which you can tell by the number of properties they put on the market per year to what their portfolio size is. Again, if anyone wants to pick my brain on that one, do pick up the phone. Let's go and look at Tilly's, Abbott's, Jones and Co. Now, I wonder here if Jones and Co. There we go. Jones and Co. Looks like there's two. I wonder if they are the same firm. If you put them together, they would be bigger. Let's look at Miners Brady. The Miners of Brady are growing, bless them. Looks like, but not nowhere near the extent of growing your Resi Sales. Hart.
Well, hang on, go back again.
What do you want?
To Miners Brady.
Nice growth.
Yeah, I think to grow lettings, but I mean, it looks organically because they're not. I don't know. They might be acquiring businesses. It's hard to tell from those sort of stats. There are some blips that might suggest that, but I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, okay. It's not. I mean, if that was a normal estate agent, I'd say that was bloody good. Okay, so let's just say that it is. They are up there, but is it as good as the Resi Sales? No, but then Resi Sales is easier to get, but then Resi Sales is easier to lose. Nicholas Humphreys.
It's part of Belvoir, isn't it? Well, TPFG now.
Okay. There must be a student agent. Norwich Accommodation Agency, Drift Down, Webster's. Just have a whiz down.
Mm.
So we'll go down to 30. There you go. Right then.
What a fun journey.
Final thoughts. Thank
An
you.
enjoyable sojourn.
Thank you, Norwich estate agents, for your attention. Again, if you need more listings and you're fed up with losing stuff because of overvaluing or you want more landlords, please do pick up the phone and send me a message. If you don't, probably one of your competitors will. Over to you, Kristian, for your final thoughts.
Not much to say, really. As I said, I enjoyed that little journey. It was interesting. I think it looks like an interesting space. I mean, you picked obviously the middle of the town, low value, high volume, difficult place to operate, and it looks to me like those that have got that secret sauce are doing quite well out of that marketplace. It's nice.
Good stuff. Your final message to any estate agent watching this about the national stats.
I don't think there's anything to see here other than I think as this show moves through the next couple of months to keep an eye on that growing stock level versus sales agreed, just to make sure that it's not becoming a bit stale and pushing the market in the buyer's favour. And then the lettings one, I think we may say this every time we talk now, which I think is every 2-3 months, but watch open rent. the value proposition that agents are selling to landlords is not landing. They don't believe.
Anyone wants to pick up my phone on that one, that lettings is actually my area of expertise in terms of growing an agency. But in the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you, Kristian. We'll get you back in a few months' time. Exceptional value as always. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.